you. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to you all. At the outset, I would humbly like to thank Dr. Chakrabarti Mahajan and the Department of Anthropology for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this webinar on mental health and well-being in post-COVID world. I strongly believe that gender and mental health, they cut across all disciplines as they are an integral part of our own very being. As humans, we are constantly exploring, understanding, evolving, and self-actualizing. And this COVID-19 has actually given us an opportunity to pause, to halt, and review our lives. It is therefore very pertinent that we talk about mental health because we are constantly hounded by the COVID pandemic, and it is surely going to remain with us for a very, very long time. Today, I would like to have a conversation with you and share my perspectives on gender and mental health during COVID-19. I also feel very strongly that anything related to mental health has to begin from our own selves, how we feel as women, men, or the other, and how gender and mental health are indeed enmeshed. I also want to here add a disclaimer that when I talk of mental health, for me, it implies not only women, but also men and the persons with alternate sexualities. However, for the purpose of this conversation, I would be focusing primarily on women. I would like to divide this conversation in four broad domains. I would begin with a very brief bit on mental health. Then I would move on to mental health impact of COVID-19 on women, followed by psychosocial consequences. And I would conclude this conversation by talking about few strategies in the post-COVID world from a gender perspective. Now, talking very, very briefly about mental health, we all are aware that WHO defines, mental health as not just an absence of mental disorder. It says that it is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her potential, can cope with normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and also is able to make a contribution to one's own community. Therefore, when we talk about mental health, we need to understand that it's a positive concept. It's a positive attitude towards ourselves, growth, development. It comprises of autonomy, integration, perception of reality, and also environmental mastery that a person might have. Now, as humans, we are social animals and we are constantly interacting with others. We interact with our partners, our children, parents, in-laws, friends, neighborhood, relatives, colleagues, professional acquaintances, and many, many other groups. Now, when we interact in these relationships, we want dignity. We all want to have a purpose in our lives and in our relationships. We want to belong to our families, our group of friends, our community, and we generally want to have a very positive feeling about ourselves. Therefore, if we, talk about mental health, it is a pursuit towards attaining dignity, a sense of belongingness, having control in our lives, and it is a journey that we travel from abuse towards dignity, from isolation towards a sense of purposefulness, from helplessness to attaining control in our lives, and also from suffering to feeling purposeful. And positive mental health is not only a universal need, it is also a human right and bridge for human development. Whenever we read or talk about mental health, there is often a lot of trust on the biomedical approach, where mental health, is associated with biological phenomenon like genetics or chemical imbalances or brain abnormalities, etc. However, I also strongly feel that there is a lot of medicalization as well as psychiatricization of mental health issues, not only in our country but also across the world. Any and every mood swing, mild OCD, sleep disturbance, or any deviance from whatever is considered as normal is linked with a disorder, based on the classification systems of ICD or DSM. As a social worker, I'm a strong believer of the biopsychosocial approach, where I would like to give a lot of significance to the social and environmental aspects related to mental health across the various multifarious strata of our population. I feel that the way I conceive my mental health, includes not only my individual attributes like my hormones, my chemical balances in the body, my neurons, or my behavioral patterns. I also feel that a lot and a lot depends upon my psychosocial factors, where I would give a lot of trust on gender. So how I perceive myself today, my level of self-esteem, my confidence, my attributes that I should or should not have, as a woman, or my do's and don'ts, my personality traits, how I manage my relationships, they all have been somewhere, developed or molded or groomed by the gendered aspects of socialization. And this same holds very true for everybody, not only for women, but also men or a person with alternate sexuality. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, that entire being, we are influenced and governed by not only the hormones or the biological factors, but to a very large extent, as a social scientist, I would say that we are governed by the socio-cultural environment, and therefore we need to give lot of trust on gender. And when we talk about mental health, therefore, gender lens has to be integrated. And gender does not mean only being a male or a female or the other, but also about power and powerlessness, about masculinity and femininity, and the complex interplay that we see across these analytical categories. Now, when we talk about mental health, during COVID-19 from a gender perspective, uh, pandemics research shows that affect men as well as women in different ways. Now, COVID pandemic has really, jolted us and caught us all unaware. And there are 14.2 million cases in the world. And in India, we have more than 11 lakhs and 18,000 persons today who are affected by COVID-19. The 4 lockdowns and the 2 phases of, the unlock are actually impacting all of us in many, many ways, overt ways as well as the covert ways. Many of us are grieving right now, even if we don't realize it. We have been missing out for more than 4 months on many, many different things, We are missing the comfort of old routines. We are missing going out of our houses without any inhibitions or fears. We are missing grabbing a bite at the restaurant. We are missing our shopping. We are missing, how we looked more presentable and beautiful. I'm missing going back to my classroom and meeting my, students, physically. Many of us are feeling lonely, and we are desperate to go back to our old normal. People are also thinking and acting in very different ways right now. There are people who are talking about feeling numb. There is a lot of anxiety among people. Some people are also in denial, and kuch nahi hoga, dekha jayega. There is also a lot of feeling of helplessness, and there is a lot of caregivers burnout. And as Dr. Bhargav said, that there is uncertainty, that we all have towards future, and therefore we are, having our pangs of nostalgia when we recall memories from the not so old past. So if we analyze, from the mental health perspective, most of us, are on the other side of abuse, feeling helpless, hopeless, and we are suffering. We want dignity for ourselves. We have, it seems, no control over our lives. We are all the time waiting for the next set of guidelines from the center and also from the state. And in this overall context, talking about gender is very, very important. I would like to share about 6 to 7 points with respect to mental health of women during COVID-19. And the first point that I wish to raise is the issue of increased domestic responsibilities. Uh, we all are aware that lockdowns and self-quarantine measures across the world have increased women's workload because more and more people are now homebound than ever before for a lengthy and continued periods of time. We are also aware that it is women who are associated with caregiving roles within the families. When we talk about household work or we talk about caring for the dependents, children, elderly, or those who need medical attention, it is more women than men who are engaged in these. And friends, we know that all these are not remunerated at all. In fact, data from OECD, shows that women spend 2 to 10 times more time on unpaid care work than men. And in the context of India, Indian women do nearly 6 hours of unpaid care work every day as compared to men. And unpaid care work, we all are aware, requires lot of effort, lot of physical, emotional effort, and it is also very costly in terms of time utilization, because if we outsource it to somebody, it is going to involve financial payment for performing these chores. So in this pandemic, if we were to ask ourselves, what do children need? Children who are now at home, who are attending online classes because schools are closed, what do they need? They need, care, and they need to be looked after. What do elderly in the family need? They need looking after. What about the people who are self-isolating, having comorbid conditions? What do they need? They need, looking after. What about our partners, what do they need? They also need looking after, friendship, empathy, support. And who is doing all this? Looking after. It's by and large, friends, it's women who are, doing that. Now, domestic helps we must, be aware of that are still not available in many households. So who is doing that work as well? Mostly, it is women of the family who are engaging in the domestic household chores. Now, interestingly, Oxford in 2020 itself, came up with a report. It's called Time to Care. And according to this report, women and girls spend 3.26 billion hours of unpaid care work each and every day. And they make a contribution to Indian economy of 19 lakh crore per year, which is actually 20 times the entire education budget of India. Now, during the corona pandemic, this caregiving role of women has increased many fold, because the entire family is at home, and there is lot of toppling of the daily schedules of each and every family member, and women are finding themselves toiling for longer hours each day in taking care of the domestic work as well as attending to the individual needs of each and every family member. And this is all amidst any domestic help. And though I have seen many partners in some privileged family like my own family, where there is a sharing of tasks, but the larger fact is, that in most cases, a woman actually asking openly for rest or for sharing, responsibilities with regards to the domestic work is viewed with lot of disapproval and is likely to face verbal, physical, emotional abuse as well. And what about the women, who are pregnant? What about the women who are, in the postpartum phase, who are already overburdened, or women who are menstruating? So I think all this actually takes a lot of toll on, women, and it is going to have the far-fetched mental health consequences. The second, domain that I want to cover is this whole concept of work from home, which has become very popular amidst the corona pandemic, and also the job losses. In the context of urban locales, we are hearing this term work from home, and women are really spreading thin, while bearing the responsibilities of the household, whenever in cases, where they are employed, and they are also in addition, they have to take care of the familial responsibilities as well as the professional responsibilities while sitting at home. And these become particularly very intricate and pressurizing for women who have small children, or the school going ones who are now having online classes with their own, stresses and turmoils, their own pressures and concerns. And it also affects women who are engaged in elderly care. So when there are two partners, trying to juggle to work from home, who is going to look after the kids? Who is going to attend to the needs of, family having timely meals, or children's feeding, bathing, homework, and their sleeping schedules? And in many places, there has been lot of layoffs, So I read a report which was released few days back. It is by McKinsey and Company, and it says that during the corona pandemic, women have lost twice as many jobs as compared to men during the corona pandemic. Therefore, all this adds to the pressure of keep, going, managing to survive, keeping the job going, to get a salary at the end of the month. And there is lot of heavy retrenchment across all sectors. And therefore, I want to say, friends, that work from home is actually taking a lot of toll on women. The time that they got away from their home, the physical time, the psychological time, the intellectual space that they got, away from the house is all gone. I have friends, who are school teachers. They are all the time working and toiling towards online classes. They are doing the co-curricular or the administrative activities of the school, for example, preparing newsletters, online debates, creative competitions, intra-school, inter-school, examination work, paper setting, evaluation, in addition to, the frequent online staff meetings that they have. They say, पहले तो हम 7 बजे जाकर 3 बजे लौट आते थे बिल्कुल free होकर, but now we are working till 10 p.m. and even at night, we keep on thinking about what is to be done the next day. I have friends who are at senior administrative positions, and they are also stressed out with this work from home, because without any support staff, they have piles and piles of reports to be prepared, compiled every day, Monday to Sunday, 24/7, and all deadlines, they have their own stringent time frames. Women in the corporate sector, I'm seeing, they are constantly busy with their own Zoom meetings that may begin from 9 o'clock and scatter till, way beyond 11 p.m. Everybody is working from home. So time, everybody says, is flexi. Well, this flexi time, according to me, is highly inflexible and torturous, especially for women who are actually treading on thin lines, and many are on the verge of mental breakup, if not broken already. So what is the consequence of this work from home? The consequence is that our personal lives have become enmeshed with our professional life. There is a lot of entanglement, and work from home culture has actually taken away the freedom, the sense of empowerment, and the me time for most women. So for how long can one stretch oneself? How many days, how many weeks, for how many months more? And no matter how much they may prepare in advance, they may work around the household schedules according to their meetings and online classes, so on and so forth. It is actually now encroaching in the personal space. And when children are involved, there is increase in what we call as, mom's guilt. And it impacts the parent-child relationship and also the familial relationships that one has. And these have, an impact on the mental health of the women. Now, the third thing which I want to talk about is the women in the informal economy. According to the ILO report of 2018, nearly 70% of women work in the informal economy. Many work as farmers, or they are engaged in home-based work like bindi making, chudi making, embroidery, tying and dyeing of clothes, garment making, and many, many more. And many women are also engaged as construction workers, domestic helps. They also run petty businesses and they even work as vendors. Now they have less secure jobs, they earn less, and they save less. Now this lockdown has led to sudden unemployment. And in many cases, we are aware that reverse migration has also taken place. And therefore, with no livelihood or social security measures, their future has become very, very bleak. Though we are moving towards unlock 3, but even then I see that it is gradually men who are slowly coming back to their jobs, because there is a lot of uncertainty. Schools are still closed, there is limited transport, and therefore these women are engaged in the child care responsibilities and the domestic responsibilities. The fourth thing where I want to is, when I want to talk about mental health aspects related to gender in COVID, is something which has really become the hot topic of discussion, and that is violence against women and girls. Now, UN report which was released recently says that amidst this corona COVID-19 pandemic, there is another pandemic, and that is called the shadow pandemic, and this shadow pandemic is the violence against women. It's a human rights violation, and of course it has severe long-term impacts on victims and survivors, their families, communities. And here I'm not only talking about domestic violence of against married women, but I'm also talking about violence against girls in the families, plus the cyber violence in these nuanced digital times. So we have confined living conditions and tensions generated by the concerns related to security, health, finances, plus pent-up emotions and energies, that have actually led to massive reporting of violence against women. And I strongly feel that there is a lot of underreporting and no reporting of cases of violence against women and girls. UN report has even said that this kind of violence is going to be the lasting legacy of the COVID-19 pandemic, because there is increase in the household stress, and there is a likelihood of increase in intimate partner violence. People are living in close contact in cramped condition, plus there are a lot of psychological factors. There is no opportunity for channelization of energies or catharsis, and this is all leading to verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, intellectual abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse. We are also hearing about cases where pregnant women have been battered to death. And I also came across a news in the Times of India, where in an online Ludo game, the wife actually she beat the husband, and that led to her battery, followed by her consequent death. So, what is actually happening is, because of the societal pressures, lack of or limited financial independence, and lack of social support, particularly during these times, there is a threatening of autonomy and safety of women at home. And home, therefore, is not, unfortunately, a safe place for women and girls in the battered relationships during the corona times. And this has further led to their isolation, because there is no support. In fact, 2 days back, I also read in the newspaper that in one of the quarantine centers, a COVID positive woman was raped. And this again shows the vulnerability of women, their objectification, even when they are, COVID positive. And all these impact, violence against girls and women, it is going to have an impact on the dignity, the self-worth, the self-confidence, self-esteem, and it is going to have long-lasting mental health consequences. The next thing I wish to talk about is the reproductive and child health risks of COVID-19. Now, we all are aware that all the major health facilities, they have been converted to COVID care facilities, either totally or partially. And the health systems have therefore diverted resources from general health to COVID care. So, what about the reproductive and child health needs of the women? How do we ensure that we are catering to these needs of women which have been denied or rolled under the carpet? We have pregnant women, we have antenatal women, we have women who need safe deliveries, postnatal care. They also continue to require family planning services, gynae checkups, safe abortions, menstrual health supplies like sanitary napkins, clean clothes, tampons, and maternal health facilities, for example, immunization for children. Now, the sexual and reproductive and child health services have been sadly overlooked during the corona pandemic, because the staff and the other resources under health, they have been diverted towards corona. And we are therefore hearing about women who are delivering on roads, in Shramik trains, and also about neonatal deaths. And even now, when we are gradually opening, women are scared, they are shy and embarrassed to go to avail these facilities, because there is a lot of fear about contracting infection, and there is a lot of overprotection of women, which further perpetuates isolation, violence, and feelings of abuse, shame, and lowered self-worth. And these impact their overall health and well-being. The next point which I wish to briefly talk about is the impact of corona on the education of girls. Now, Plan International actually has come up with a report during the lockdown phase. It's called Living Under Lockdown, and it takes a close look at how COVID-19 pandemic is going to impact the education of girls around the world. Now, the schools are shut down around the world, and girls are missing the learning opportunities, and they are more, as I said, likely to face violence at home, and unplanned pregnancies, child marriage, economic hardships. And according to this report by Plan International, many girls are never probably going to return to their classrooms. And at the end of March, there were 743 million girls who were out of the school. Now, finally, before I talk about the overall consequence and strategies, I just wish to very briefly touch upon women under difficult circumstances, and I want to just mention about certain categories of women. For example, single parents, female-headed households, trafficked women, sex workers, women who are living in the institutional setup, women with disabilities, women with chronic mental illnesses, elderly women, etc. And we also need to keep an account of their vulnerabilities, and their needs also have to be attended to. Now, I want to move on to the second last part of this conversation, where I want to just talk about the overall psychosocial consequences of corona on women. I want to here integrate all that I have just mentioned, increased domestic responsibilities, work from home, women in the informal sector, violence, layoffs, and the special categories. And I want to discuss with trust on mental health in terms of the psychosocial consequences. Now, there is a lot of research, pre-corona times research, which says that, men and women experience different varieties of mental health problems. And research evidence says that women exceed men in internalizing disorders, for example, depression, anxiety, whereas men exhibit what we call as externalizing, disorders, for example, substance abuse or antisocial behavior. WHO has also said that women are twice as more likely to develop depression during their lifetime as compared to men. In fact, the National Mental Health Survey of India 2016 shows that there is male predominance in alcohol use disorders, and bipolar affective disorders among men, whereas there is higher incidence of, mood disorders, neurotic disorders, OCD, phobias, GAD among the women. So keeping all this in mind, we are aware that until there is a vaccine, social distancing measures have to be in place. Restrictions on mobility, they are likely to remain in place. And particularly in the urban areas where the virus actually multiplies at a very, very fast rate. Even now, when there are newer COVID hotspots emerging, there is incidents, in the rural areas that coronavirus is spreading now very, very fast. So we are constantly worrying about catching infections, and we are afraid to go out. And, even to buy essentials, we just, tend to go to the bare minimum. In fact, there is a report by Guardian Weekly, and it said that 6 out of 10 women said that they were finding it very hard to feel positive day to day. And half of the women also said that they were also very concerned about risk, that was being posed by coronavirus. And interestingly, let me also share, that they also said it was found that women were more likely as compared to men to have helped others during the pandemic. So for already, coping with these concerns, violence, layoffs, work from home, enhanced caring responsibility, all this is getting worse, in terms of our experience, women's experience of own mental health. So there might be negative self-perception, feelings of anxiety, low bouts in terms of mood, emptiness, hollowness, mood swings, difficulty in concentrating, changes in appetite, etc. Because women are trapped in vicious cycles of tension, power, helplessness, and they are very, very vulnerable to experience varied mental health concerns, especially depression, anxiety, and trauma. And pandemic has actually aggravated this vulnerability or the susceptibility that women have. And they may therefore direct their anger, their humiliation, and fear towards themselves or towards those who are dependent. This may also lead to trauma bonding. And if the woman is also experiencing, partner abuse, then things are going to get aggravated. So the gender lens reveals, that the impact of COVID-19 on women is actually immense, and there is a lot of research required from a gender perspective with respect to, women and corona. So I would like to move towards the last domain of this conversation, where I just want to talk about some gender-based strategies in the post-COVID scenario. And I want to begin by the first and the foremost, point, that is, we need gender disaggregated data for each and every domain. Number of infections, recoveries, deaths, school dropouts, layoffs across, different sectors, medical sector, social sector, economic sector, whatever. And we need to understand the impact of lockdown on women and girls, and it is only then that we can plan, we can develop, and we can implement effective policy measures. We need to understand the impact of corona on women, and we also need to understand the range of responses that they are exhibiting, positive, negative, or neutral, whatever. We need to have a gender perspective in terms of our quantitative or qualitative research with respect to all the efforts, policy formulations, with the inclusion and participation of grassroots women as well. We need to take various sectors. For example, I would be keen to study the mental health aspect with respect to corona on my students, on my research scholars, on teachers, on homemakers, and I would also want to cover men and the trans persons as well. And we need to actually, realize that these are difficult times. There is less data available, so we need to be more sensitive, and we need to analyze from a gender perspective.
Ma'am, we have 2 more minutes for you.
2 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I also want to talk about shared care in terms of reorientation of the domestic sphere, where shared care has to be there. Among the informal workers, there has to be a task force that has to seriously look into the plight of the women in the informal sector. We need to enhance the technical skills among the women, because this is the digital time, and there we have to focus on how can we reduce the incidents of violence against women. And we also need to keep into account the RCH and the RSH services for women. And I will conclude by saying that we need to talk about normalizing mental health, and we need to be sensitive when we talk about mental health issues, so that there is less stigma. And we need a lot of research which is gender based, and we have to include women, men, and persons with alternate sexuality. We cannot control what is happening, but we can at least challenge ourselves, with regards to how we respond or what is happening, by being more sensitive. And I think that is where the power lies. So I hope that we remain happy, we are safe, our spirits are strong, and our hearts are at peace. Thank you so much.